got this, got this. Those dudes, they harmless. They talk reckless, but they just yellow like jaundice. I pay homage to ones that came before. They did not knock the door. Rumbled in with tin boots. Come on, band with the suits. Funky Jamaican roots. Warriors with the stats.
What a delight to be saying these words. That right there is brand new music from Choclair. That song is called Got This. It is off Choclair's new album, Transit Music. It's his first album in 20 years. Look, the return of Choclair is a big deal. It's also happening as hip-hop gets better at celebrating the artists who paved the way. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. We've got two longtime Canadian rap music fans here right with me right now. Dalton Higgins is here, and Craig Big C Mannix is here. Hello, both of you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Listen, I'm delighted to have you here. This is such a lovely time. Dalton, I'm going to start with you because that was the song that you picked. Got This. That's the one we're sort of starting with there. I don't know if we can hear Dalton. Actually, he might be having some technical difficulties. Dalton, if you can hear me right now, why do you want to play that song? No, I don't think you can hear me right now. Big C, I'll go to you because you work with Choclair, and for you, like, I'm going to get to some of the precedents that he set in the industry and why he's such a significant Canadian rapper in just a moment. But you know what? While I have you here, I'd like to play the song that you chose to play here. So, like, this is a song called Feel. It's your favorite pick off this new Choclair album. Let's hear Feel right now. Let's hear it.
I'm a man of the people, never will be no equal. When I die, there's no sequel, just a 21 gun. Salute from the troops, looking like I was regal. So pack up all your and just run. Back to the hills with your Jack and Jill. Oh yeah, it's shocks for real. Lighting up the stage again, raging in with a pencil in, drawing on everything from full scaps to blackboards and to white Porsches. I'm such a gilligan.
Big C, why'd you want to play that song?
Because when I heard it, when I first took a listen to the album, and it really showed me a maturity of Choclair as an artist, and it really cemented the fact to me that he can keep up with the times. And that track sounded like, you know, if you play it more, it sounds like a real, as I would call, a Toronto Mandem track. It's got some griminess to it.
Yeah.
It's got some lingo in it when you listen later on, and it just gave me that kind of feel, almost to more. It made me feel like that could sit in a mix with a lot of the stuff that has come out over the last 10 years out of the city.
Yeah.
So it's like I really identified with it.
I'm interested in this idea, right? I'm interested in this idea of, like, okay, you've got this artist who has been around, has been kind of foundational, and then he kind of goes away for 20 years or so, and then he comes back with a brand new record. What compare to the artists that you're hearing then and now? What are the differences that you're hearing?
Back then, when I worked with Chiz, which was his second album, which was Memoirs, which was a follow up to the iconic Ice Cold, which was done by himself, Day, and my friend Russ Hergert, who actually signed him. But what I'm seeing from back then to now is just a much more mature MC, rapping about different things, rapping about, over the last 10 years, this term dad rap has come out, right? Which is like,
what does that mean when you hear that term?
When I hear dad rap, it's a way of the younger folks saying, "Oh, those are old MCs rapping about old stuff," but they're not rapping about old stuff. They're rapping about life.
Yeah.
And an MC is only as good as what they know on the content. You talk to a lot of MCs, they'll tell you they read constantly, they watch the news. The better ones, they know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
More than just what's going on with their ops on the block.
Right. I think I hear that term and that idea, and the thing that makes me think of as a dad is that there is something about hip hop itself that sort of lends itself to being called a young person's game, right? Quite often, sort of like this idea of hip hop as a genre that is pushed forward by youth, pushed forward by younger generations, and for the longest time, that is kind of the thing that we had. But you've had this really good year for the OGs, right? We've had a new album from LL Cool J, from Slick Rick, from Raekwon. We talked about the new De La Soul record on this show last week. Do you think this might translate, Big C, to us seeing more releases from our own veterans right here in Canada?
I think that's what should be happening. I've said over the last maybe 10 to 15 years, when you hear, I bump into OG artists all the time, and I just tell them, listen, you can do this, and you can
There's
do
room
this
for you, right?
There's room for you, and you can do this more so now than you ever could. You can do it yourself. You don't need a label. You don't need any of these things. You can do it, and you already have a fan base. The problem is, I think they stopped. Like they have it's almost like a lot of these MCs have a built-in best before date, and after a while, they stop. And I'm like, well, why did you stop? Nas never stopped. Ghostface never stopped.
Yeah.
Those artists never stopped. Why? So when I can go to a Ghostface show, I can see a bunch of people in their 50s, but I'll also see a bunch of people in their 20s.
Right. He never sort of surrendered to the idea that he can just kind of
They never surrendered.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing that makes Nas immediately sort of relevant in the middle of this entire movement of being like, we can bring back the OGs because actually you just have to treat it as though you never went away, as though you still have something to say in this particular moment. I gotta say, this is the context that we're talking in is the context of the new Choclair album, and part of what made Choclair sort of incredibly noteworthy in the 90s was that he was, if I'm not mistaken, the first Canadian rap act to be signed to a major Canadian label. That label is Virgin Music Canada. It was a huge deal then, and that kind of sort of homegrown support seems to kind of align with the thing that you think of now as like this whole like elbows up thing. Like we're listening to people who laid the foundation here, but also we're listening to people who are rapping about living here. And yet, you're not sure that the Canadian record deals, like rappers like Choclair right now, will ever sort of happen in Canada again. Talk to me about that. Why do you think that will not happen again? Because you'd think, with all the energy that we're spending on being like, let's pay attention to the acts that we have in this country, you'd think that there would be more and more of these, but you're not so sure that's going to be the case, Big C.
No, I'm not 100% sure of that. And I'll tell you why, because there's less and less curators of culture within the companies, right? So when you don't have people surrounding you who are in the know, you're going to lose touch, and that's inevitable. I always say bringing data into the business has kind of been a gift and a curse, because now we have all this information that we've never had before. So now the people who are data numbers and numbers driven, that's what they want to use to direct the industry. But that is great as a tool to monitor what you have and to guide what you already have released, but it's not a predictive tool. So it's impossible to predict hits and what's bubbling in the underground and what's coming up next. With data, you have to be out and about, you have to be connected, you have to know, and you have to still have that element of gut. And that's the way, that's what I think.
First of all, before we keep going with this conversation, I just want to play one more song off that Choclair album. Let's hear a bit of Dunkin' on 'Em.
1, 2, yeah. I'm like a chiropractor, girls call me backbreaker. A Scarborough night walker when a teenager. Then turned the microphone into a lifesaver. Then later turned into a spot taker. And if you weren't into my favorite, then you get into off of skyscrapers. Lose your breath, go and get your inhaler. Stealth on the scene like an alligator.
That is a bit of Dunkin' on 'Em. That is off the new Choclair album, Transit Music. It's his first record in 20 years. Big C's here. And Big C, I just wanted to ask you about the thing that you just said. That it's an interesting phrase to me, that there's not enough curators of culture here. When you say that, you're talking about the record industry and the ways that sort of the record industry gets music from artists to listeners and actually helps them find their audiences. At least that's how I take it. Is that what you meant? Is that what you meant by that phrase?
Partially, yeah, for sure. I meant that you're spot on. I meant there is nobody there to really direct and curate the direction of this music, but also to bring it in. It's your domestic roster is, especially in the smaller territories, which is outside of the US, outside of the UK, the smaller territories, your identity is your domestic roster. And if you don't have a robust domestic roster, which is also the premise of the business we're in, it's like it's the fuel. Right? It's the fuel for the overall company. But now you don't have people who know how to plant the seed and grow and nurture and develop the music and the product. You just don't have anybody on that end of it. You have people, taking big swings for big acts. And that means there's no more, there's less and less artist development. So a guy like Choclair, who was signed on gut feeling, gut instinct, back then there was no data numbers, and it was just done. Right? We just did it. You went and you talked to your CEO, and you convinced them why, and you were respected on what you were signing because you were respected as an expert. Now, the problem is the experts are now being overshot by the analysts. So the analysts are saying, well, an expert will come in and say, I think this is happening. I think this is bubbling under. I think this is happening. I've been out a bunch of times. But the data people will be like, well, we don't see any data points to relate to that. So I guess your expert must be wrong.
This is a recurring theme that we sort of talk about a little bit on the show, but this idea of like bending a little bit too much towards the data at a certain point where you begin to sort of privilege like the numbers that you're seeing on TikTok versus like the gut instinct of someone who says this artist can develop to a place where they can sell out different kinds of arenas. I mean, like one of our favorite music critics, Emily Hanskep, was in the studio a couple of weeks ago talking about how sometimes these artists who sort of blow up on TikTok, they don't have an opportunity to develop their arena show. So suddenly they go from having a hit song on TikTok to playing in front of 20,000 people and they don't really know how to do that. They don't really know how to carry a live show. They don't really know how to sort of interact with a room that big. And as a result, no one's having a good time. It doesn't do the favors to those new artists. It doesn't do any favors to the audiences who are showing up to this thing. And there's something that is lost in the sort of development pipeline that you're talking about. So to just come back to, new Canadian rap acts right now who are kind of, they're maybe along the same path as Choclair, but they're a little bit further back, right? Because Choclair paved this path for them. Do you have any advice for this new generation of Canadian rap acts who are sort of trying to figure out how to carve out their place right now, Big C?
Well, it's like I always ask an artist what they want and what kind of artist they want to be, right? Because if you want to be a working class artist, if you want to be someone who rolls up their sleeves, has control of their own destiny, that kind of stuff, then maybe a major label is not the place for you, right? And quite frankly, if you're a developing artist, the major label system can't help you. They're just not set up for that anymore. So I would say, but decide what you want. And if you want that big, you want to be that big global superstar, and that, go after that deal. But I will say this: anybody who you want to get into business with, whether it be a major, mid-level distributor, sit down, talk to the people in charge, not just the person who's bringing you in, because all too many times, because I'll tell you something, the person that brings you in never decides whether you get to stay or not. It's someone above them.
Yeah.
Right. So I would insist that if you're interested, if they're showing interest in you, that's fine. And I'm not anti anything, but it's like, sit down with the person in charge and sit down with them and have your list of questions and ask them why they want to do business with you. Why do you think? Where do you see the direction of my art? Where do you see it going? And then from there, you and your team walk away there and surmise whether or not you want to do something there, or you want to do something for yourself. There's just so many angles. There's so many ways to do this.
I think that the thing that you're talking about there is how to sort of carve out longevity for yourself, and that is the occasion that we are gathering because there's a brand new Choclair album out. I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here, Craig. This has been wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. That's Big C, Craig Mannix. He's a veteran music exec, also a consultant for VP Records. He is also based in Toronto. Choclair's new album is called Transit Music. That is out right now.